Dr. Jakubowski is a well-respected international influencer on helping kids live happier, healthier lives. She has touched the lives of thousands of families in multiple states with her ability to connect and help kids experience success from challenging behaviors. With a doctorate in educational leadership and nearly 20 years of experience in education as a teacher, assistant principal, and principal, she is highly regarded as an educational game changer. And how did I meet today's guest? Taking a chance, of course, networking. Each month, I spend some time networking to make a difference in the classroom and came across today's guest profile when searching for mental health advocate principals. Stay tuned for some awesome work in the future from us. But before we get started today, let's open up with Karin. What does mental health mean to you?
So, Vince, I love your definition of mental health, where you say mental health is wealth. And I actually had you as a guest on my podcast, which was super fun. And I always say to people when they are at the point of retiring, I get so excited when people retire. And sometimes they're like, wait, why are you so excited? Like, aren't you going to miss me? Because maybe it's somebody at my job. Yeah. And I'm like, no, you have worked so hard your entire life. And now I want you to be able to enjoy it. Like, you deserve it. And too often you find people retiring and kind of dying shortly after. And I hear it more times than I care to admit. And it shouldn't be that way. Mm-hmm. So as much as I always tell people, your health is all you've got. Once you don't have your health, I don't care if you have all the money in the world. If you don't have your health, you're not living. And so it's closely tied to mental health, because if we're not taking care of ourselves mentally, we can be physically healthy, but if we're mentally exhausted, you living with negativity, you're hearing that negative bias in your mind that constantly keeps you from getting ahead, or maybe you're your worst critic. So you hear the judgmental thoughts that can just keep you down. Then that's not living either. And that's what we're all living with day to day, whether you're, still working, retired, whatever. So yeah, mental health, super important.
I like the way you put that too, where if you're not healthy, it really doesn't matter about the money. And that's something I talked about in my first book, Left for Dead, where what's the purpose of that money? If you're not healthy, you're dying young. A lot of people, I hear that too, where maybe they lose their will to live or their goals to strive for once they retire. You, however, have a lot going on, and I can't wait to touch on that today. And you're going to stay thriving way past your days in the classroom because of something you are launching right here, March 2022. Stay tuned to learn all about how that can help your mental health. And thank you for sharing that opening, Karin. I'm excited to dive into mental health talk with you. And this is a mental health break. My name is Vincent A. Lanci, and I am the author of 2 books for mental health, Mental Health Week and Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health. You can learn more about me on my website, vincentalanci.com, or at Vincent A. Lanci on YouTube and social media. If it's your first time sitting down with us today, each episode I sit down with a mental health advocate or professional from around the world to help you on your journey. You never know which story will resonate with you most. I began focusing on my mental health after suffering a traumatic brain injury, and you will hear the why of today's guest relating to mental health advocacy in just a moment. I would like to start by sharing that this episode is brought to you by Tampa Counseling and Wellness, dedicated to helping individuals looking to positively transform their lives through compassionate counseling and wellness coaching. If you struggle with depression, anxiety, or other mental health issues, remember you are not alone. You can give them a call today for a free consultation. They have in-office and virtual availability. Just scroll down in the show description to find their information. Today's guest insights have been featured in various media outlets, including the Washington Times and Delaware State News, and heard in multiple speaking engagements internationally, such as the National Principals Conference and as far-reaching as India, which is awesome. She's an empowerment coach as well as a principal, where she provides a framework for parents who feel helpless when their child is experiencing challenging problems at school or home to experience the happy life they've always dreamed of through utilizing her revolutionary problem-solving approach. Dr. Karin Jakubowski, thank you so much for coming on another podcast with me.
You're so welcome. It's great to be here.
Can you introduce yourself to everyone who has not heard you on that entrepreneur show yet?
Yes. So my name's Karin Jakubowski, and I was a teacher for about 6 years. And when I was a teacher, I kind of saw administrators and principals that I struggled looking up to and respecting. And I love kids. So I love teaching kids. I love inspiring kids. I love showing kids more of them than who they might see today. And no matter when a kid did anything wrong, like to me, like the slate was clean, like every day was a fresh new start. That's how I want to be treated. And that's how I always treated my students.
Mhm.
And then I just had this little desire in me to become an administrator, become a school principal, and create an environment where kids love coming to school and teachers and staff love being there and connecting and giving back to these kids. And so I pursued my educational leadership with a degree in my doctorate program, and then became an assistant principal, and then became a principal. And but back to those years as a teacher, I had kids who one day we were about to go out to recess, and one of the kids just ran and hid in the tall coat cubbies in the back of the room. I didn't know why. I didn't know what precipitated it. Seemed totally fine before that
Mhm.
moment. And I couldn't get them out. I couldn't like change their behavior. I couldn't figure out why they did what they did, and I couldn't get them to just kind of reabsorb. We were going to recess, like that should be like the funnest part of the day, right?
Mhm.
So I had to call administration, and they came in, they were with the child, and then finally, they kind of got back to the routine and stuff like that. And it was situations like that as a teacher that I faced that really troubled me, because I really wanted to know why kids did what they did, and I wanted to be able to connect with them. And I didn't have the resources and the tools, and since then, I've learned an approach that I ended up using as an assistant principal and just really mastering it to the point where now, almost a decade later, I'm teaching parents. And as we teach, a mom said the other day, "Oh my gosh, you're helping me do things and with my child that I didn't even learn through the counseling that I got to help raise
Amazing.
my kid." And so the stuff works, and it's so exciting to see. And yeah, the kids deserve this from us.
Yes, I respect everything you're doing, and I really appreciate it. I'm sure as everyone does listening on, because it's a very difficult time for children as well as adults, but children already have their whole lives out of their hands being told what to do, and then COVID comes, they can't see their friends, they can't go to school. So there was a lot of mental health challenges they faced. Would you now mind talking about some of the ones that you had experienced in your schools, perhaps?
Yeah. So, the kids, we were remote for probably, well, we started when COVID hit in March, we all went home for 2 weeks. That turned into, the following school year, we started late. We started the first 6 weeks remote. Parents chose to send their kids in. Some chose to keep them at home. And so we had about 60% students in. And then this next school year now, we're all in person, but because of the restrictions and still the COVID precautions, like the kids, for example, cohort at recess. And so they only play with their class, and there's like 4 or 5 classes per grade. And even that simple thing, Vincent, kids are struggling because
I
they have
bet.
friends in other classes. And it's like, why? And they don't understand it. Like, why aren't, and they tell me, why aren't you letting me play with my friend Johnny in the other class? And it just breaks my heart, because I'm like, if this wasn't here, and I keep
Yeah.
bugging my nurse, like, are we good now? Are we good now? Can they all have recess together? So even one simple thing like that, kids are feeling it. And the parents are sharing, like, it's so hard for their child. And so pre-COVID, Vincent, my psychologist, educational diagnostician, and I yearly were saying the mental health needs of kids are rising. What are we doing about it? And we don't feel
Exactly.
like we have the expertise in this area, but yet they come to us and we are faced with their problems to solve. And then COVID hit, and it has just exponentiated, where I feel like every student needs their own individual school counselor.
That's the good thing you said right there. What are we doing about it? And that's the question the adults need to ask themselves, how they can really help these kids. You're doing a tremendous job. You're right there trying to really make a difference. And it's crazy to also think about the difference in states that we're in. I'm in Florida. I don't think that's an issue here. When I was doing my speaking engagements here with the Mental Health Week book, they said you can wear a mask if you'd like. You don't have to. I chose to personally. That was my decision, but they weren't on the in the classroom. The students have the choice. So it's interesting to hear the differentiation from states as I had my guests on each week. But can you now talk about when you decided to start really focusing on mental health for your students?
So 3 years ago, the year COVID hit, that school year, at the beginning, we brought in a mindfulness coach to teach mindfulness lessons to our kids in K to fifth grade. She came in once a week, 15 minutes for 6 weeks. And we had piloted her program in the first grade class at the end of the year, right before that, with like incredible success. Like even Vincent, a teacher, was like, "What are you doing? And why is she coming?" Like they were skeptical. And at the end of the 6 weeks, that teacher was saying, "Oh my gosh, Karin, I'm not only using the tools for myself, I'm using them for my own kids at home, let alone what the kids were learning within school." And parents were saying their kids were coming home practicing and sharing with them what happened. You can't even get a kid to tell you what they learned in school that day, let alone them offer what they learned, right? So
Yes.
this was incredible. So I'm just watching all of this go down. And like I told you, we'd seen and talked about the mental health needs of kids rising year by year.
Yep.
And I'm watching all this play out in front of me. And then our team leaders met up this summer and we decided to invest a chunk of our budget to bring the mindfulness coach in for the fall for all the kids. Well, she did a pre and post survey of our second and fifth graders. 40% of the kids said it helped them sleep better at night. Sleep better. If I can get one kid to sleep better, I'll do whatever it takes. Like to me, that was amazing. So, a high percent of them said it helped them calm down, helped them take a test, said they were using the practices at home, thought this should be taught to other kids. And after I'm looking at this data, I was like, wait, I've been waiting for someone else to come in, the state, the district, whatever, to meet the needs of these kids. And all of a sudden, I saw this as a proactive, almost therapeutic, proactive approach to really empower kids with tools to help them in those moments where they can notice when they're stressed, how to calm, take a breath, notice through your senses what's around you. And I was so committed to it. After that, it just supercharged me into this work. So I took 2 courses to learn the lessons, and I've been talking about this for a year and I'm just going to do it. You and I both know what that's like when you have 100 ideas you want to do, right?
Yep.
But I haven't done it yet, but my idea is to run an after school. I might do it virtual just so people can feel safe, like a 20-minute mindfulness lesson once a week, and just try it out. See who comes. See what I have no idea. We'll see how it goes, but I'm really excited, and that's my next thing I'm going to step into.
You never know until you try, and that's another great example for everyone. It's also a way to improve our self-esteem and confidence. Once we do things we are foreign to, like everything else, you try it once, you know you can do it again. Thank you for shining light on that. I would now like to ask you to shine some light on things you do to improve your mental health, whether they can be short-term or long-term.
So I personally started practice meditating probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And my husband meditates even more than I do. And he's always like paved the way in this area for me. So I've sort of watched him, and then I just sort of, practice it on my own. But you know, what's amazing is that when I just sit still and calm, and I usually do it in the mornings, it is the number one thing that calms my brain. And I call it like this freaked out feeling that even sometimes I have in my chest or in my shoulders, just with knowing what's happening in school, or an email that might come through, or a parent that a difficult thing we're dealing with a student. It has been the number one thing. And where I used to think exercise really did it for me, this even does it more than exercise, even though I continue with my exercise. So exercising for me, meditating, being out in nature is so huge. My husband and I started camping on the weekends, just being out in nature. And it has really just rejuvenated and kind of like fills us up again. And then one thing for me that also helps me just totally decompress is a really nice bath. That's like a treat. And so, and a massage here and there, those are some things, but really try some things and find out what works for you, even if it's 15 minutes. I learned that recently because I tend to think it has to be like this big thing, like a massage or something that costs a lot of money. But really it can be something small, but it's just noticing when you need that break, whether it's a few minutes or something you schedule for 30 minutes or an hour within a week or within a month. So that's what works for me. And I really challenge you to find out what works for you, and it's a gift to yourself that you owe yourself. And I say it's as important as that meeting on your calendar is your moment of self-care. Make that commitment to yourself, that meeting with yourself this week, and stick to it. because you deserve it. You're worth it. And we're only our best when we are at our best. We're only our best for others when we are at our best.
A lot of amazing points there. A lot of things I try to stress as well. Nothing works for everyone, or I shouldn't say nothing, not a lot of things. If it doesn't work for you, there are other ways and other tools that you can adapt to thrive. I really like that. The sunlight, of course, it's funny. I can laugh about it now because I'm particularly healthy other than my leg injury, where I went to the doctor and I was vitamin D deficient and I lived in Florida. I said, listen, like I'm always working, I'm inside, I'm on the computer. So I try to be mindful of every hour, stepping outside, getting some sunlight, taking a small walk. Very, very good points. Now, Karin, let's look into the future. What are you working on? How are you going to help others improve their mental health?
Okay, so I am running my second live, I call it a mindful parenting course. I ran it in the fall. Was first time I ever did it. Totally stepped out, scared as anything. As you know what it's like to start something new. But hey, if you don't, like you said, if you don't start somewhere, you never know. And that could take you to something else that could be incredibly and amazing. But it was awesome. It's 6 weeks, 1 hour a night. Several women and I jumped on and we just learned from each other. Like it was just such an open, I mean, obviously I had my PowerPoint and I'm sharing things and we're talking, but it also gave women a chance to also share their perspective and their stories and their questions. And so it was so awesome that I was like, I'm going to run this again. And most of them are like jumping into the next course, which is so funny to me because I was like,
It's amazing.
I didn't think someone who was in the course wanted to do another one. So I've ramped it up a bit. I went to a training for some personal growth and development in Texas in the fall. And so I'm incorporating some of those strategies that have really helped me break through some areas in my life where I have been dealing with some low confidence and low self-esteem, which is funny because Vincent, you're probably looking at me and you're like, what the heck is she talking about? Like other people see things and it's like, but I still struggle at times from things. And so it's helped me, oh my gosh, just unleash some of that stuff in me and grow thicker skin. And so I'm excited to share this with more moms. I was just at the doctor's office this morning and the lady was saying her friend's fiance passed away and her girlfriend's trying to raise these 4 kids. And I was like, here, take this. I have a free video course. If you go to my website, www.educationalimpactacademy.com, and you put your email in to get, my email of my blog weekly, you'll also be sent a video series where I share this collaborative problem solving approach that I touched on earlier in this podcast.
I love that. I love the ambition. It's inspiring each time we talk. Everyone, be sure to stick around again to the end of the episode to find more ways to get in touch with her, network with her, and of course, learn more about this amazing course. I think it's now a great time to get into the spotlight story. If it's your first show, towards the end of each episode, my guest and I go over another's mental health journey, usually someone famous, to show you that you are not alone. I want you to understand that even though someone may look healthy from the outside, they may not be on the inside too. And as we have a rock star educator / mental health advocate on the show today, we're going to do something a little different and go over to NAMI's site, the National Alliance of Mental Health, and see what their stance is on mental health in schools. And as we have a principal on the show, I'm looking forward to a great conversation. NAMI believes that public policies and practices should promote greater awareness and earlier identification of mental health conditions. They support public policies and laws that enable all schools, both private and public, to increase access to appropriate mental health services. Next part is headed by Why We Care. 1 in 6 U.S. youth aged 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year, and half of all mental health conditions begin by age 14. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, behavior problems, anxiety, and depression are the most talked about or commonly diagnosed mental health disorders in children, yet about half of youth with mental health condition received any kind of treatment in the past year. Now they're talking how we talk about it. Many mental health conditions first appear in youth and young adults, like I said, with 50% of conditions by age 14 and 75% by age 24. 1 in 6 youth have a mental health condition, but only half receive any mental health services. I wanted to highlight that again. Delays in treatment lead to worsened conditions that are harder and costlier to treat. And for people between the ages of 15 and 40 experiencing symptoms of psychosis, there is an average delay of 74 weeks, which is nearly 1.5 years before getting treatment. What are your takeaways here?
Well, I really love that you brought out that research because 1 in 6 kids are getting diagnosed with mental health disorders. And the number one is anxiety. And the median onset age is 6 years old. Like, I can't believe that. It should not be that way.
Terrible.
That should not be, right? So then you ask yourself, well, then, what is the solution? And I love Kira Wiley. She was the one who actually shared this data when I came across her like 2 years ago or something. And she was like, imagine if, I think she has a TED talk that's pretty famous. She said, imagine every class in school starting with 3 minutes of a mindful moment just to get them to collect their thoughts. I know a physics science teacher here in Wilmington who does that. He doesn't teach his kids anything else about mindfulness, but he starts every class with 3 minutes of mindfulness and of just quiet. And the kids do it. I've done it. I've done it in classes with kids and they just soak it up. They are so open and drawn to it. And the experiences that these high schoolers in that physics class wrote, because now he started a blog and they share. One of them even said it was mindfulness practices that got me through 2020 and the COVID. Like, this is powerful. There's got to be more of this in our schools. And this is that proactive approach that I was telling you about. We can teach kids these strategies. There was one 5th-grade boy. Okay, so what's that, like 10, 11 years old? And I literally let me videotape him saying his story where on the weekend, his mom was helping his older brother. He wanted to ask his mom a question. She was busy. He got frustrated because he wanted his mom's attention now. And he remembered his mindful breaths. And he just went and took his breaths. And all of a sudden he was like, it's okay. I can wait. It's not a problem. Like, Vincent, that's huge. Imagine teaching your child this. Imagine you doing it as the parent, and they're going to watch you and they're going to be mirrors of you. And then you're going to show them how natural and okay it is. Mom takes her moment of mindfulness break. You might need to take one too. Imagine families utilizing this practice and within schools.
I love how you put it there. Children look up to the parents and teachers and guardians in their lives. What we do, they're often going to mimic or somewhat they want to be like you. They look up to you. Thank you for pointing that out, everyone. That's a good reminder to try to be your role model as much as you can. And with that, I want to thank you so much for those talking points on that article and research and for your whole episode. Of course, I'm going to highlight again, what works for some does not work for everyone. Your take on exercise, because that is my thing as well. I want to stop you now for your last word.
So don't be hard on yourself. There's a ton of things you might think need to change in your life, need to change in your kids' lives, but take a minute and thank yourself because you have brought yourself to where you are today, and just be grateful. Be grateful for where you're at. And here's an awesome opportunity. I have a podcast, Momnificent. If you're a mom out there or a parent raising kids, a guardian, check it out. There's 50 episodes on there. They're all different, and they're ways to help you in raising your kid. And some of them are just about your mental health and how do you take care of yourself when you're giving, as I know you do. And I just want to thank you because you're doing an awesome job and you're being the best you. You're showing up with everything you know. And that is incredible and amazing. So keep being you because the world needs it and your kids need it as well.
Thank you for the kind words. Everyone, you just heard how to find out what she's up to and her course, everything she's doing. Be sure to check it out. And we are at a mental health break on all social media, except for YouTube. I am at Vincent A. Lanci, and on Twitter, of course, because of the character limits, we are at Podcasts by Lanci. Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health and Mental Health Week are available on Amazon now. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next Tuesday on a mental health break. Thank you so much.
Thank you.